Hello, this is Uz Report World News with me, Amason Haidarov. For the first time in its history, Uzbekistan presides over the Commonwealth of Independent States Council. The video conference that was chaired by Uzbek President discussed the upcoming projects within the organization.
According to Mirziyoyev, the priority nowadays is given to the rapid restoration of economic, trade and cooperation between the countries. Despite the existing problems, Uzbekistan's trade with other CIS countries is growing steadily. Trade with some partners has increased by more than 20% this year alone. Trade with some partners has increased by more than 20% this year alone. Improving the competitiveness of transport corridors, harmonization of technical regulations and standards, implementation of mutually agreed tariff policy, and mutual provision of preferences have been identified as important tasks in the transport sector. Uzbekistan supports the soonest resumption of flights in compliance with all sanitary requirements. This would serve to restore business, humanitarian, and tourism exchanges, said President Mirziyoyev. The parties also agreed to hold an annual CIS health marathon with the organization of mass sports and cultural events in order to prevent diseases and promote a healthy lifestyle. Moreover, the president of Belarus praised ideas put forward by his Uzbek counterpart.
I listened attentively to the report of the President of Uzbekistan, Shavkat Miromonovich. His report was practically comprehensive, and if he does not mind, we will use his proposals for implementation next year. They are very substantial and smart.
The 10th plenary session of the Senate of Uzbekistan has approved the 2021 budget. The law on the state budget defines main macroeconomic indicators, the consolidated budget, as well as targets for 2022-2023. It's been forecast that revenues will amount to $14 billion, or 21.3% of GDP, and income will make up $2.5 billion, whereas expenses will surge nearly to $4 billion. $1.5 billion will be allocated to state trust funds from the Republican budget. In addition, $3.2 billion will be channeled to the social sphere, including education, $1.9 billion to healthcare, $200 million to culture and sports field. $114 million will be given to science to its further development. The Uzbek government will continue to maintain macroeconomic stability, provide fiscal stimulus measures, and ensure 5% economic growth. According to the forecast, the downward trend in inflation will remain at 10%. Uzbekistan Senate has also agreed to allocate additional $325 million to the anti-crisis fund that has already received almost $1 billion from the state budget. The legislators hope that an extra spending will help to mitigate COVID-19 pandemic impact on economy. The rapid measures taken by the government have already helped to curb the year's biggest downfall. These include measures to ensure macroeconomic stability, uninterrupted operation of industries and sectors of the economy, stimulate foreign economic activity, effective social support of the population, and prevent a sharp decline in incomes. The Senate Chairwoman Tanzila Narbayeva drew legislators' attention to the fact that 13 laws were amended, more than 40 decrees and decisions were adopted. On the contrary, around 50 decisions of local governors which contradict the current legislation were annulled, as well as imposing disciplinary sanctions to 32 officials. In order to further strengthen the role of the Senate as a coordinating body, it's empowered to repeal decisions of local councils that contradict the law. Public appeals raised by mass media, including social networks, journalists and bloggers, will serve as a basis of a wide range of parliamentary oversight measures. In particular, the man-made Sardoba Reservoir disaster was studied with the full participation of media outlets. The World Health Organization called on countries to include refugees and migrants in their COVID-19 response plans on Friday as it marked the 20th anniversary of International Migrants' Day. In a statement issued to mark the event that falls on December 18th each year, WHO Director said at a regular press conference that it shows that people living on the streets and in asylum centers are less likely to seek care if they have symptoms of COVID-19.
It shows that people living on the streets and in asylum centers are less likely to seek care if they have symptoms of COVID-19. Of those who reported not seeking health care, 35% said it was because of financial constraints, and a further 22% said it was fear of deportation. More than half of those surveyed said that COVID has caused them depression, worry, anxiety, and loneliness.
Uzbekistan has received the first batch of new electric freight locomotives from China. 3 freight and 1 freight passenger machines are more powerful, energy-saving, have computerized control systems, and meet all environmental requirements. Uzbekistan Railways state-owned company has started modernizing its train fleet on $170 million loan borrowed from the Asian Development Bank. Husnudin Hasilov, chairman of the railway company, says that a total of 30 locomotives are planned to be delivered within the project. Despite the pandemic, our Chinese partners have managed to manufacture and deliver 4 locomotives and promise to send another 12 by the end of the year. It is expected to complete the order by March next year. Initially, we were planning to purchase 24 electric locomotives. Surprisingly, China-based manufacturer beat other bidders by offering these excellent machinery $5 million each that consists of 2 sections. The environmentally friendly locomotives are equipped with asynchronous traction motors and modern technologies to reduce energy consumption. It is noted the voltage of the trains are twice as high as other models, which allow drivers to accelerate up to 120 km per hour. The robust 2-section electric locomotives can hold heavier trains and more efficiently manage routes on steep gradients like Tashkent-Andijan and Tashkent-Termez. Many Tashkent residents have expressed their concern regarding the new decision of the Tashkent City Park administration. The director announced earlier this week that visitors other than persons with disabilities and children under the age of 5 are now requested to pay the entrance fee to enter the complex within the holiday season. To unveil the reason behind this decision, Uzreport World Team has contacted the park's authorities.
According to a new decision, persons above 12 years of age have to pay 10,000 Uzbek soums, or approximately $1 per ticket. Children above 5 to 12 years of age, 5,000 Uzbek soums, or approximately 50 cents, and pensioners, 5,000 Uzbek soums. Additional 20,000 Uzbek soums are required for a parking area. Since its establishment in 2019, residents and guests of the capital have been able to visit the park for free.
Наша цель, дать людям возможность отдохнуть.
We aim to grant people the opportunity to rest in an environment away from the hustle and bustle of city life. Therefore, we deliberately refuse to install attractions in order not to cause inconveniences for the residents of the Tashkent City Complex and park guests. The maintenance of the area and its further development requires very large funds. The rental income we receive from lessees is not very large. The share of rental payments that we receive covers around 30% of our expenses. Every month we spend an average 900 million soums. At the same time, income is a little more than 200 million soums. So we have a certain situation in which the park suffers losses and we do not have the opportunity to develop it. As you understand, we cannot allow the park to lose its face and its unifying role in the Tashkent City Complex.
Based on this, according to Bahram Rizaev, the directorate decided to introduce a paid entrance on New Year's Eve and New Year's days.
As the demand for affordable medical goods fueled by the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic has grown immensely in Uzbekistan, the EBRD is stepping up efforts to support local manufacturers in Central Asia's most populated state.
A senior local currency loan of up to $2.8 million in Uzbek soum equivalent will allow Headline, a leading domestic producer and trader of disposable medical goods, to launch a third production line dedicated to the manufacture of single-use medical gloves. The funds in local currency will protect the borrower from foreign exchange-related risks. The new production line will be commissioned in the first quarter of 2021 and will help expand Headline's principal production site in Tashkent. The company will be well placed to meet constantly growing domestic demand for disposable medical goods, expected to grow at a rate of up to 11% annually in the next 5 years. Headline will also be able to increase exports across Central Asia and expand to new geographical locations, including Russia, Europe, and North America.
At a press conference on Thursday, Ministry of Finance of Uzbekistan announced Nefroplast as its private partner with the provision of high-quality dialysis services, the largest and fastest growing provider of dialysis services in Asia.
Nefroplast has won the tender for financing, construction, equipping, training and management of 4 dialysis clinics in the city of Tashkent, the Republic of Kyrgyzstan and Khorasan region to provide vital services to more than 1,000 dialysis patients.
In our country today, there are more than 4,000 patients who need hemodialysis. The international investor will contribute to improving the quality of medical services in the field of hemodialysis services. Each patient who needs hemodialysis needs to have 144 sessions, and with the use of disposable materials, it's planned to implement 2 projects on the base of public-private partnership with the assistance of the IFC.
In particular, the project will greatly benefit patients from rural areas, as Nephroplast will launch peritoneal dialysis practice in Uzbekistan for the first time. Peritoneal dialysis treatment allows patients to receive dialysis treatment at home, reducing travel time and family costs. Thus, access to dialysis therapy will be extended to rural and remote areas, which is an important innovation for the country. The agreement with Nephroplast is expected to be signed within 30 days.
The Tuscan Youth Forum has kicked off in the capital on Friday. The event took the form of a real conversation between ministers and youth. Within the forum, the Festival Youth of the Capital was organized and held with a large audience.
The event started with a positive atmosphere and continued with addresses by Tashkent Mayor Jahangir Atakhojayev and Deputy Prime Minister for Social Affairs Begzat Musayev. The mayor said if the youth would be put on the right path, they would become the personnel Uzbekistan needs tomorrow. The participants also shared the topics raised at the forum.
I asked the question about monitoring teachers' knowledge. This is one of the main tasks of the Ministry of Public Education. I believe that they must fulfill their responsibility.
As a response to this question, the Minister of Education talked about the measures they have taken on this issue.
From September onwards, teachers are no longer wasting time on red tape. Speaking about the assessment of teachers' knowledge, we tested them in some regions. The results were below expectation. Why? Because the teachers were involved in forced labor, like cleaning and picking cotton.
Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Latvia to Uzbekistan, Mikhais Popkovs, talked about the current reforms and other topical issues during an interview with UzReport channel correspondent in Uzbekistan. This year, we were able to implement 3 projects on grants of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Latvia. For instance, Project Cleantech Latvia in Bukhara has helped local administration to modernize the heating system of the city. Obviously, our countries have a couple of advantages in close cooperation. The experts can communicate without any language barriers and understand each other perfectly. It's because we had the same infrastructure before. In April 2017, His Excellency President Shavkat Mirziyoyev signed a decree on rapid overhaul of the heating system in Uzbekistan. The bilateral cooperation in this sphere has given a new impetus to other projects too. The global COVID-19 pandemic has had a significant impact on all fields of economy. However, the mutual understanding and work between the states have stemmed out to attract more Latvian investors to Uzbekistan.
Democratic lawmakers expressed growing frustration over what they say is a lack of information coming from the Trump administration over a suspected Russian hacking campaign against the U.S. government. Following a classified briefing on Friday on the intrusion, Democratic New York Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney said the administration isn't doing enough to combat the national security threat.
National security is the number one challenge, the number one responsibility of a government is to protect our people. Every government agency is compromised. Our national security is compromised. I'm disappointed that he is not bringing the government together to respond to it.
Reuters on Thursday reported that Microsoft was also hacked as part of the suspected Russian campaign that has hit multiple U.S. government agencies, including the U.S. Departments of Defense, State, and Homeland Security, by taking advantage of the widespread use of software from SolarWinds Corporation. It was not immediately clear how many Microsoft users were affected by the tainted products. U.S. Representative Stephen Lynch, head of the House Committee on Oversight and Reform Panel's National Security Subcommittee, said it appeared U.S. cybersecurity experts, quote, don't have a real sense yet in terms of the breadth of the intrusion itself.
Were you satisfied with what happened during the briefing, the information you were given?
No. Quite frankly, I think the level of specificity that I found in the New York Times or the Washington Post or the Journal is much better than what they brought this morning. Very disappointing. it's like pulling teeth to get concessions and from getting any level of specificity.
The U.S. Energy Department also said they have evidence hackers gained access to their business networks as part of the massive cyber campaign.
French President Emmanuel Macron was quite strict about social distancing early in the pandemic. He even replaced handshakes with the Indian Namaste-style greeting, a bow with Spain's king and queen, for example. But now he has coronavirus, and other world leaders are rushing to self-isolate themselves as a result. And from fist bumps to handshakes, there are signs that recently he'd let his guard down. In one case, just 3 days before his office announced he had tested positive, Macron greeted the 70-year-old OECD chief Angel Gurria with a hand clasp and a loose embrace. Both were wearing masks, but Macron broke his government's #1 pandemic rule: avoid handshakes, hugs and kisses, and stick to what the French call barrier gestures. On July 12th, Macron even tweeted, quote, "You know them, they save lives. Barrier gestures are not an option." He appears to also have forgotten this when, over the last couple of weeks, he fist-bumped European world leaders at a summit in Brussels. Later, he greeted EU chief Charles Michel and Spanish leader Pedro Sanchez in Paris with pats on the back and elbows. Sanchez, Michel and Gurria are all self-isolating. Parliamentary sources also say Macron hosted a lunch at the Élysée Palace on Tuesday with about 20 members of parliament, and then another dozen lawmakers on Wednesday, despite his government recommending no more than 6 guests at dinner tables. Back in October, when he announced a second lockdown, he did say lots of people slip up sometimes with social distancing, including himself. "We should all have respected barrier gestures more," he said in a television address, especially with family and friends.
Tired, hungry and dazed, Nigeria's freed boys arrived back home on Friday, having been rescued from their captors. As they got off buses in the city of Katsina, many of them appeared to be barefoot and were wrapped in blankets after a week-long ordeal. Gunmen on motorbikes had raided the government science secondary school in the town of Kankara in Katsina State, and more than 300 of them were marched into a vast forest. Authorities say security services rescued them on Thursday. However, many details surrounding the incident remain unclear, including who was responsible, whether a ransom was paid, how the boys' release was secured, and whether all of them are now safe. One boy, who did not give his name, said the captors had told him to describe them as members of the Islamist militant group Boko Haram, although he suspected they were armed bandits. Speaking to Nigeria's Arise television, he said, quote, "They beat us morning, every night. We suffered a lot." Another told Reuters that they had barely been fed.
They hid us all in the same place when they took us at first, but when they saw a jet fighter, they changed the location and hid us in a different place. They gave us food, but it was very little.
The abduction has gripped a country already racked by widespread insecurity. It brought back painful memories of Boko Haram's 2014 kidnapping of more than 270 schoolgirls in the northeastern town of Chibok. Any Boko Haram involvement in this kidnapping in Katsina State would mark a geographical expansion in its activities from its base in northeast Nigeria.
London commuters are ditching the tube and buses for an alternative that will generally be illegal. Since the pandemic began, increasing numbers have been turning to e-scooters. Costing $400 upwards, they have a top speed of around 15 miles an hour. Erica Kloss works in the city and is an e-scooter convert.
Why not join the bandwagon like everybody else and become eco-friendly as well and be able to be safe? I just don't like to be on top of people in the tubes because when I go to work, I work in the city and it does get pretty crowded in the tubes when you head to work in the morning.
But there are challenges for the e-scooter revolution. Unless it's rented and is part of a government trial, it's illegal to ride one on a public road. And questions remain about how to regulate motorised scooters, whether people would need a driving licence and how they are insured. Transport Minister Grant Shapps in May brought forward trials of rental e-scooters in London to next spring. Scooter retailer Harvey Malik believes the trend is here to stay.
Obviously, COVID-19 being a huge factor for why it's kind of grown massively. Like people don't want that face-to-face contact again, like I said, and they just want to like stay away from everyone while they're transporting. So, and scooters, electric bikes, they're all amazing ways of doing this.
Around 30 trials are already underway in other parts of the country, and the results will help inform a decision on whether and how e-scooters might be legalised on roads. Some in the e-scooter trade say the government is moving too slowly on the issue. Their popularity is rising elsewhere too. Paris last year imposed restrictions, though, with fines for driving them on the pavement or parking them in doorways. After 2 deaths and scores of injuries, residents had become increasingly vocal against e-scooters.
Uncertainty over a coronavirus stimulus deal dragged down stocks on Wall Street Friday. Trading was unusually heavy as investors and fund managers rushed to buy shares of Tesla ahead of the electric car maker's addition to the S&P 500 index Monday. Tesla shares rose nearly 6% to an all-time high. Mercadian Asset Management President Ken Kamen says its inclusion could subject index funds to wider price swings.
Tesla's like 4 or 5 times more volatile than the S&P, so they're now going to add something in there.
The Nasdaq ended Friday just below break-even. The S&P and Dow fell roughly 0.4%. Investors grew anxious as Congress looked increasingly unlikely on Friday to meet a deadline to agree on a relief package. Back on Wall Street, FedEx shares dropped. The package delivery company's quarterly profit nearly doubled, but investors soured on the stock when FedEx declined to issue an earnings forecast for next year. Microsoft helped drag down the S&P 500. The software titan found malicious software in its systems related to the massive hacking campaign U.S. officials disclosed this week.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration gave Moderna the green light on Friday night to provide doses of its coronavirus vaccine to millions of Americans for inoculation. Moderna's vaccine became the second to receive the Emergency Use Authorization, or EUA. Welcome news to a nation with a staggering COVID-19 death toll of over 311,000 lives lost. The FDA announced the authorization 1 day after the agency's panel of outside experts endorsed its use. The authorization follows an EUA granted for a similar vaccine from Pfizer and German partner BioNTech that has been put into the arms of thousands of U.S. healthcare workers this week in a massive nationwide rollout.
These are the latest stories for today. You may find more on our social media platforms and website. Thank you. Goodbye.